Because that's what communism is. Suffering as one.
Except for
and then there's that 1% that doesn't suffer. They just tell everybody else how much they have to suffer. I won't stand for it, Jessica. I'm cranking mine to 69.
Yeah, your favorite number. Jessica.
The crew on the 5 completely lost the plot over something that should have been one of the least controversial ideas imaginable. Greg Gutfeld and Jesse Waters reacted as if a simple request from the mayor for people to raise their air conditioning by a couple of degrees was some outrageous attack on freedom. Seriously, the suggestion was meant to help reduce stress on the power grid during extreme heat so everyone could keep their electricity. Yet somehow Fox turned it into a debate about communism. Jessica Tarlov pushed back as best she could, trying to inject a little common sense into the conversation, but the entire exchange quickly spiraled into pure political theater. After watching the segment, I had plenty of thoughts myself, because the whole thing was so absurd that it almost felt impossible to believe. So let's break down exactly what happened.
Socialist brat is coming for your thermostat as a blistering heat wave flame broils the Big Apple. New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani is demanding New Yorkers set their AC to 78 degrees. So I have an interesting question, Dana.
Okay.
So when he demands stuff from people, he's very selective. It's like the rich have to pay for this. Mm-hmm. There's always a protected class. But here it's a group effort. He says everybody. Why didn't he make the exception for the protected classes? Why is it different with this and not with our money?
Tell me.
I think it's because he knew that if he applied the same principle he does to our personal wealth to something like air conditioning, he would have been barbecued.
Yeah, and deservedly so. Here's the other thing. This happened in the EU last week. Remember when they were having the heat wave? So at the EU building, they said floors 1 through 7 were not allowed to have air conditioning.
Yeah.
Guess where all the fancy people work?
Yes.
And above that, and 8 and above, so they could have air conditioning, but the poor masses, like the ones who maybe didn't get a college degree, you weren't allowed to have air conditioning things. So you start rationing things. The thing that Zohran Mamdani could have done is push back on liberals who took away.
The explanation honestly seems pretty straightforward to me. Heat naturally moves upward, so apartments and offices on the upper floors are usually much warmer than the ones below them. That alone would make it reasonable for those higher levels to receive different cooling treatment if officials were trying to manage temperatures inside the building. My guess is that this was the practical reason behind the policy, not some secret political agenda. It seems like the kind of common sense explanation that anyone would consider before jumping to dramatic conclusions.
It's a very well-running,
clean,
and nuclear generator that was providing a lot of support to the grid. We don't have that anymore because Cuomo let it go. The liberals demanded it. Mark Ruffalo was like, no, we only want renewables. And now you have everybody in New York suffering, possibly, if they do this, except for I bet Taylor Swift doesn't have to suffer.
That was going to be my next question to Jesse. Taylor Swift's wedding is at Madison Square Garden on July 3rd. Why didn't Mamdani grow a pair and say, this is also for Taylor Swift? I would like to see your entire wedding be at 78 degrees.
Well, I hope he doesn't do that because I'm going to the wedding.
Really?
Yeah, I got an invite.
That's good.
Friends with the Kelseys.
Nice.
It's not true. I'll be here baking 1,000-degree heat. You know what they say, Greg? First they tell you how cold to keep your room, and then they can tell you how much sex you can have.
I didn't see that leap.
It's a slippery slope.
Yes.
They're going to say one-child policy next. This is how communism starts. They start rationing things. But you're right. They attacked the power plants. They attacked the pipelines. And now, like a good communist, he wants everybody to suffer together. Because that's what communism is. Suffering as one.
Except for
and then there's that 1% that doesn't suffer. They just tell everybody else how much they have to suffer. I won't stand for it, Jessica. I'm cranking mine to 69.
Yeah, your favorite number. Jessica, why doesn't he provide proof that
One thing I genuinely don't understand is why so many older viewers continue tuning in to this kind of content every single day. Fox News has an audience that's largely made up of people in their 70s, yet they're watching hosts who spend part of their broadcasts making childish 69 jokes. Think about that for a second. Greg Gutfeld and Jesse Waters are grown men in their 40s and 50s, and this is the level of humor they're bringing to a national television audience. It's honestly hard to believe that's the standard they've settled on, and somehow it's treated as serious political commentary.
it by having a little camera on his thermostat? Because I want to see him sweltering in his office. Because we know, by the way, we know he's not. We know he's full of crap, but he should go first.
I am all for the GoPro in Gracie Mansion so we can see what's going on down in City Hall, too. But I assume that you want to broaden this segment to also criticize Greg Abbott and like Brandon Gill, the Texas congressman who comes out and he wants to dunk on Mamdani, say, oh, you big socialist mess or communist mess, whatever. And Texas Advisory, when it gets hot, the Public Utility Commission of Texas and the Department of Energy recommends thermostats to be set to 78 degrees. Greg Abbott says, could you conserve some energy? And they've had problems with their grid, remember? Ted Cruz takes off for Cancun when the grid goes down. So this is just good policy, in fact. And I'm pretty jealous. I would take 78 degrees right now over this 103 or 150 or whatever is going on. So I don't know, check what's going on in your own state before you go after someone else because someone is going to bring it up on television. And I'm done now.
Well, if Brian Kemp says it has to be 78 degrees, I will never vote for you again. I don't care who you are.
I wouldn't listen to them.
The one thing,
But then say that
the one
Brandon
thing
Gill's a big
Georgia
communist.
and Texas doesn't have is 8 million people from all over the world living on top of each other. And there's just a lot of different ideas and kind of on what kind of deodorant you wear or don't wear. There's just a lot of little smells in that city. And I don't think you should cook those smells and push them up and say, hey, you get in the Uber and it's like, I need a gas mask. I'm just saying, if you're going to do this, then also mandate speed stick, probably the tropical kind. That way, no matter who I'm around, I don't need to smell whatever it is that, is coming out at 78 degrees or higher.
I think the point isn't who else is saying it. It's the people who say it who don't do it. And that is the left. They've invented the luxury belief to fund the police, but I have my security.
That's why I brought up the EU thing.
Yeah.
It's like if you're the lower classes, you're below stairs.
Yeah, you guys do this.
Yeah, you do that while
I've got important work to do.
Yes, because we're
You
smarter.
think Greg Abbott is sitting around in an 80-degree house?
I don't think anybody in Texas is paying attention to any of that. And I think that you've been in a Texas restaurant, it's freezing in July.
Yeah.
Then there was another panelist whose name I don't even know, and what he was implying was honestly disgusting. The message basically came across as New York is full of people from different countries with different backgrounds, and they smell bad because they aren't white. That is such an ugly stereotype to casually throw around on television. The implication was that if everyone were white, somehow everything would smell fine. But because the city is diverse, people supposedly don't wear deodorant and create some kind of problem. It's an incredibly offensive thing to suggest. Then they shifted into talking about the building's different floors. And maybe I'm missing some detail because I'm not in Europe and don't know every part of the policy, but the simplest explanation seems obvious. Higher floors usually get hotter because heat rises. That's basic science. Ironically, these are often the same people who dismiss scientific explanations, yet they immediately ignored the most logical reason for the decision. I seriously doubt officials were sitting around saying the people on the upper floors are more important, while everyone below can just suffer without air conditioning. That makes far less sense than simply recognizing that the upper levels experience more heat. If anyone actually knows the official reason behind the policy, let me know in the comments, because I'd be interested.
As for Jessica Tarlov, I actually think she handles herself pretty well under difficult circumstances. But I don't think she's ever going to win an argument with Jesse Waters and Greg Gutfeld using appeals to consistency or hypocrisy. She'll point out that leaders in Texas or other Republican states have made similar recommendations during extreme weather, hoping that comparison will expose the contradiction. The problem is that the people she's debating simply don't care about that contradiction. If the exact same advice comes from someone they support, it's perfectly reasonable. If it comes from a Democratic mayor, suddenly it's treated like evidence of socialism or communism. That's the entire framework they're operating within. Greg Gutfeld even framed the situation as though the mayor was ordering everyone to obey some mandatory rule, when that's not what happened at all. It was presented as guidance, not a demand.
The reality is much less dramatic than they made it sound. The message was simply, if we're dealing with a major heat wave, consider raising your thermostat a little so the electrical grid isn't pushed beyond its limits. That's not government control. It's a voluntary request based on how power systems work during periods of unusually high demand. On top of that, it's strange hearing these same MAGA commentators dismiss conversations about infrastructure while also mocking renewable energy. Most people on the left have been arguing for years that the electrical grid needs serious upgrades. States like Texas have often relied heavily on private companies to manage large parts of their power system, and when severe heat or freezing temperatures hit, we've repeatedly seen major failures. Instead of focusing on practical solutions, many conservative commentators would rather mock the people trying to solve the problem. Whether it's improving the grid, investing in infrastructure, or discussing different energy sources, they seem far more interested in turning everything into another political fight than having a serious conversation about preventing future outages. That's what makes these segments so frustrating to watch. The last point that really stands out is the irony of Jesse Waters complaining about people supposedly being told how to live their lives. This is the same person who constantly goes on television lecturing everyone about what real men are supposed to do. One day it's saying real men don't drink through straws. Another day it's claiming real men don't eat soup or making fun of someone for eating an ice cream cone. He spent countless segments policing everyday behavior, yet suddenly a mayor politely suggesting people adjust their thermostat during a dangerous heat wave becomes unacceptable government overreach. The contradiction is impossible to miss. In the grand scheme of politics, there are obviously far more important issues facing the country. But this is the kind of story Greg Gutfeld and Jesse Waters choose to spend their time attacking. A mayor says, please consider turning your air conditioning up a little during the heat wave so the power grid stays running and everyone can keep their electricity, and they treat it like a national scandal. The alternative is much worse. If the grid fails, nobody has air conditioning at all, and sitting in a home that's over 100 degrees is far more dangerous than being slightly less comfortable for a while. Let me know what you think, because I'm curious where you stand on all of this. And as for Jessica Tarlov, I still hope that one day she finally stops trying to win these debates by pointing out hypocrisy and simply tells these guys exactly what she thinks, because that strategy clearly isn't changing their minds.